Now let's bring in the new chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman Michael McCaul. Good to see you this morning,
Thanks,
Mr.
Martha.
Chairman. You heard what Senator Kuhn said about the Abrams. You have urged Germany to allow those Leopard 2 tanks to be released into Ukraine. But what about Abrams tanks, the U.S. tanks? Do you believe those should be sent, as President Zelensky said he so desperately needs?
Well, you know, I do. The Wall Street Journal had an editorial that said we're giving them just enough to bleed through months without a chance of victory. That's the problem here. They need the tanks and they need the tactical long-range artillery known as ATACMS. If we announced we were going to give Abrams tanks, just one, that would give Germany what I hear is that Germany's waiting for us to take the lead. Then they would put Leopard tanks in and also release, remember, there are about 10 countries that have Leopard tanks, but they need Germany to sign off on releasing.
So just one Abrams tank, you think, would release all the Leopard 2?
Or even saying that we're going to put Abrams tanks in, I think would be enough for Germany to unleash.
The Pentagon says they're too cumbersome, complicated, expensive. They only get 3 miles per gallon. Are they the right tanks to be there?
Every military expert I've said, including General Keane and others, these tanks, remember, you have a new general in town now, right? He took the butcher of Syria out. He's got the more offensive general. There's going to be a winter offensive by the Russians. They need these tanks on the eastern flank and the Donbass. They also need the ATACMS, the longer-range artillery, to hit Crimea, where the Iranian drones are, and that's where likely
And you believe they
invasion
should hit Crimea. Has the U.S. softened its position on that? Because that always seemed like a red line, that would provoke Vladimir Putin.
That's the assumption that Crimea is part of Russia. It was illegally invaded upon in violation of international law. I don't consider
I don't think they're assuming
Russia.
It's part of Russia, but they just, in the past, have not wanted to go that far.
If a King's X is placed in Crimea, you can't hit the Iranian drones. That's what's causing all the power outages, the innocent civilians being killed, or these Iranian drones in Crimea, in addition to other missiles. But this is what the Ukrainians say. It's what our top advisors I talk to say is what they need. When we give them what they need, Martha, Stingers, when we give them javelins, when we give them HIMARS, then the longer range artillery, they win. But if it's going to be a slow bleed without a chance of victory, that violates the Colin Powell doctrine.
How do you think Putin would react if our weapons hit Crimea?
How is he reacting when we put the HIMARS in? How is he reacting?
So you don't think this would make any difference?
I don't think so at all.
Okay.
And who's being provocative here? I'd say Mr. Putin is.
Since the war began, NATO has really stayed together, but we've seen a little bit of distraction in the last few weeks, especially with Germany. Do you worry about that?
I do, but I do think the Ramstein conference was successful in the sense that all the NATO allies realize they have a burden of sharing and contributions, and they all did contribute to the effort. But the two main things that Zelensky is talking about and that everybody I've talked to is that they need the tanks for the winter offensive that the Russians are going to perpetrate, and they need the longer-range artillery.
And I want to ask you about these newly discovered classified documents in President Biden's home. So you heard what Senator Kuhn said. He thinks still there is no there there. They'll just find out it was insignificant. Do you think this changes anything legally, and what do you think they should do next?
Well, what's significant as a former federal prosecutor, you have a search warrant now conducted by the FBI, not the president's lawyers, right? So that's a departure from...
It was consensual.
It was consensual.
It was consensual.
It was consensual. Yes. I think there are a lot of questions. I don't know. And the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, won't answer our questions. So I don't know what these documents pertain to. All I know is the documents were there. I do know that China gave a $30 million contribution to the University of Pennsylvania at the time the Biden Center is standing up. And just a lot of unanswered questions. This broke a week before the midterm elections, and they swept it under the rug. Now we're just finding out.
And you think there'll be tremendous political fallout?
I don't know. You know, Watergate started as a very small burglary, and it led to the President of the United States resigning. So I don't know what's there until we see the documents. If there are national security documents relating to foreign nation adversaries, particularly China, and China's in that Biden Center.
But what about President Trump? That is very different when you look at it. That was not a consensual search. They tried to keep some of those documents away from investigators. How do you compare them?
Yeah, the way I look at it, my wife is a naval intelligence analyst. If she took one document home, classified, she would be prosecuted. Me, I would be prosecuted. There should be a different standard, even if you're, I know he says he declassified them. Biden called it totally irresponsible, but yet he's guilty of the same sin, if you will, by taking these documents home. Why are they taking these documents home? I don't understand that. I've lived in the classified world for a long time.
And